If you're a filmmaker, you need gear, but buying gear is so different for so many people because of their various needs. So in this video, I want to help you decide what gear is best for what you're going into. I want to help you save some money on that gear. And then lastly, I want to share the gear that I use that best fits most of my videography purposes. If you don't know me, my name is Nathanael Lathrop. I am a freelance videographer and filmmaker here in Southern Oregon, and I've had the privilege of being able to work on a lot of different projects over the years. And over those years, I've seen different pieces of gear being used in different areas more specifically, and I've also seen what gear is maybe better to be an add-on later when you're growing your business and you're not just getting started. So as I list off the gear that may work best for you, I will have all of the links for all of those products down below, and they are affiliate links. So if you do purchase through them, I do get a small commission, but it doesn't cost you anything extra. So to best determine the needs and the general process of buying gear, I want to break this into 4 different categories. The first being narrow down what you want to do, whether that be wedding videography or real estate or commercials, narrow it down. And then second, breaking down what gear you need for those different categories of projects. Thirdly, I want to give you some advice on saving money on that gear. And then lastly, I want to share with you some of the pieces of gear that I use that even as a bare bones kit will work great on almost any project. And if you're an experienced professional, I'd love for you to comment down below maybe advice you have on the subject, or maybe gear that you'd like to recommend so that those who are just starting out may have a base level to go off of. This may be a long video, so there are timestamps down below if you want to use them, and if you don't, let's get started. So the first thing I want to start with is finding what sort of area in film or video production you want to emphasize in, whether that be starting a YouTube channel or making narrative films or documentary. Narrowing down what you want to do is really helpful because it can be a trap for those who are just starting out to see the world of videography and be like, oh wow, I guess I need these 5, 7, 10 things. And then all of a sudden they're buying gear that they don't necessarily need for the projects that they end up working on. So buying gear specifically for an area is really helpful when you know what that area is. I will say though, something that I've been able to be a part of that has been really helpful for me has been dipping my toes into various aspects of the industry. Whether that be a little bit of documentary or a little bit of reality TV, wherever I can get my hands on it, I try to give it a try for a few reasons. Firstly, just because it's good experience to maybe try out some documentary or try out some real estate or some weddings or that sort of thing, just because you gain experience. The second reason is it's also money. Like if you have skill sets in wedding videography, you probably are able to carry over the same skills into real estate. And then thirdly, and maybe most importantly, you meet people that are professionals in each of those areas. And even if you don't end up focusing in on the one area that you met some of the other professionals in, a lot of these things will carry over. So even though these things are, you know, all different categories, a lot of them overlap and you get professionals that do a little bit of everything. So then once you have figured out what you want to emphasize in, then it's time to pick the gear that is best suited for those projects. And I'm going to give examples within narrative, documentary, weddings, and YouTube, just to name a few. For narrative projects, really the bare bones that you need is, yes, a camera, a lens, and some sound. Yes, having lights and tripods and stabilization and external power are all great, and they will be kind of mandatory to grow as a filmmaker, but you just need just a few things to get officially started. Starting with the camera, some great options are the Sony a6700, the Canon R8, and the Canon R50V. All of them are very small and compact and cheap. And then if you're willing to go up a little bit more in budget, the Sony FX30 is a great camera. That's what I'm using now. The GH7, the Lumix H2, and then the Canon R6 are also really great options that have some really good video features. In terms of lenses, most projects will be best suited with a zoom lens. It's really great, but they can get expensive. So having a set of primes for narrative is probably a better option. But having multiple lenses can cost a lot of money. So what I would recommend is actually getting vintage lenses, but a lot of times the best vintage lens options will not specifically fit your camera. So I would recommend getting lens adapters from K&F Concept. That way you can really link any lens to any camera body. If you want to learn more about those adapters, I have a link down below. In terms of audio gear, usually you will see a main recorder that's hooked up to a shotgun mic via XLR, and then some lav mics as backup audio. But to keep your package as small and compact and cheap as possible, I would recommend the Comica VM40, which I'm actually using right now. It's a shotgun microphone that will hook up wirelessly to your camera via a little tiny transmitter, and that way you can get boom audio right to your camera, and it works really great. And then going into documentary, one thing that changes is that you will a lot of times have interviews, and a lot of times interviews, depending on your setup, will require lighting and maybe some audio stands and stuff like that. So a light that I would recommend alongside a softbox is the GVM 300D, which is a bicolor 300 watt light, and it works really great. I'm using it now, also with a softbox from Embedful. And they both compact really well, they're easy to use, and they're cheap. And then staying with the camera options, I would say most of the ones I mentioned previously are really great. I would recommend using one that has stabilization, and then using a zoom lens, partly because a lot of times you cannot get super close to your subject. Maybe you're making a documentary about river otters that are scared to death of seeing a person, or maybe something that's event-centered, where you can't get super close to whatever you're filming. So having a camera that has a nice zoom lens with some stabilization will probably be a really good option. If you're looking for some zoom lenses, a really great one is the Tamron 17-70, which I'm actually using right now. I'm a little bit biased because that's the one I have, but it's a really great lens, has great range, it stays at 2.8 the whole time. Another lens that's slightly cheaper and a little bit different is the Sigma 18-50, which is also a really great lens. And then if you're looking for a little bit of range in the zoom category without spending a lot of money, is the Canon 75-300. That way you can get really close to something without being really close. And then going into weddings, firstly you'll want a camera that has good autofocus, because a lot of times that will be incredibly helpful for whatever you're doing on that day. And then you'll also want a zoom lens. Again, the Tamron 17-70 is a great option. But the one factor, I guess there are two factors that are really key for weddings, are audio and stabilization. Audio will change a lot depending on the needs of the couple. Maybe they just want a basic down the aisle camera recording of the ceremony, or maybe they want their speeches specifically recorded, or just maybe some doc style kind of B-roll type audio. But a lot of that requires different pieces of gear. What I would recommend for capturing as much of that as possible, or having the most amount of flexibility, is getting a Zoom H4 Essential. They're just a little kind of a Tascam style handy recorder that firstly can plug into a soundboard, so you can record directly into whatever the mic maybe the officiant is talking in. You can also hide them near the couple or somewhere in the ceremony to be able to get some sort of audio. And then they can also be mounted onto your camera so that you can have some really good ambient audio that's on board your camera, just for getting some, the ambient sounds of the celebration and people talking and stuff. And then that second factor is the stabilization, because most people do want really stable camera footage in their wedding videos to make it look like a memory and make it dreamy. So what I would recommend for that is the DJI RS3. And then the last category that I want to talk about is YouTube. YouTube a lot of times just really depends on whatever you have available to you. And for that, iPhones work just great, or whatever a smartphone device you have is pretty acceptable for YouTube depending on what you're doing. And then really all you need is a way to mount your phone onto a tripod or something like that. For that, I would recommend Ulanzi. They make some really great mobile options for that sort of thing. And then using that Comica mic, like I mentioned, will also work really well. And then if you do need lights for your YouTube setup, the light that I mentioned before, the GVM one, is great, but it's probably overpowered for the YouTube setup. So instead, I would recommend the SmallRig RC120. Just the daylight version will work great because it's a compact light. It will hold a decent sized softbox, and it's relatively cheap. You still with me? You still alive? Doing okay? Okay. And now thirdly, once you have figured out what you want to narrow your focus to, and you have the gear that you want to get, Now it's time to find that gear, but to be able to hopefully save some money on it. And I have 3 ways in which I do that have saved me a lot of money. Firstly, is don't buy what you don't need yet. A lot of times people will see a bunch of the stuff and they're like, okay, I guess I need to spend $3,000 on gear because that's the only way to do it. You don't. You just need what you need in the moment. And then once your career has hit a point where the limitations of your gear are stopping you from growing, that's the point where you need to start adding gear to your arsenal so that the gear that you are getting is moving alongside your career and not stopping you or moving you in a different direction. It's really easy to try to justify using gear by imagining something that could happen in the future. Like, oh man, I should get a Dana Dolly because when I make that one movie that I really want to make, then I can have a really smooth shot for that. You're not making your movie right now, maybe you are, but you're not making something that is going to happen in the future someday, maybe. You're working on your business and your skills right now. So just invest in what will help you in your career. That way you're not spending way more money and getting way more pieces of gear than you really need. We often live in a world where as soon as we see somebody's camera cage or a camera cart or something with a lot of bells and whistles on it, we start kind of attributing what they have and the massive gear that they have to their value as an artist, and what is required to get to the point where they are. Because the big trap is the comparison game, where we see YouTube videos or we see people in person that have a certain set of gear that they've gotten over the years, that they use on set and stuff like that. And then we start thinking, oh man, if I had that, then I get to be where they are in their career. I get to immediately step up and almost shortcut 3 years of progress that they made and you don't have. You haven't made that 3 years of progress and you may be in a totally different spot in 3 years. And then the second way to save money will be to, it sounds obvious, but wait till those items are on sale. So one thing I like to do is keep a mental list or maybe even a physical list of all the gear that you know that you'll need to actually get started, and then creating another list of all the gear that you want to get that will actually help you improve what you do and the quality of footage that you get, whether that be a new light, a new camera, new lens, or something like that. And then kind of holding that in your cart on standby. And then looking to see, throughout the calendar year, if any of those things are on sale. A great place that I look basically every day is B&H Photo, because every day they will have a 24-hour or sometimes a 48-hour deal on maybe 6 or 7 items. And sometimes those items have been on my list of gear that I was going to get anyway, so it makes sense to buy it now while it's cheaper. That way you're not kicking yourself 2 months down the road. You're like, oh man, now that I need that gear, it's not on sale. Being able to look around, a lot of times companies like Newer or Amaran or Small Rig and stuff like that will have a lot of deals throughout the year for Christmas, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Black Friday, stuff like that. So just keeping your eye out for the gear that you've already decided that you actually should get, and then purchasing it then. And then don't fall for the trap of trying to justify how you're going to use this item that you really want, that you don't actually need just because it's on sale. Looking at it practically and being like, okay, I know that I will use this and I know that I will actually make money because of purchasing this, and then going from there. But there is a catch, and that is, as you may have noticed, during sales, some companies will actually hike up their original price to make their deal price look better. And I've even seen deals where the item that is on sale is actually the original price of that item before they hiked up the original price. So I would recommend creating screenshots of everything in your list with their normal retail value, and then once they're on sale, whether they be on sale or not, then you can refer to that and be like, okay, that's actually worth getting because that is in fact $200 off, instead of like, oh, it says it's on sale, so I guess it is. Sometimes it's not. So just being aware of that. And then the last way to save money is to not be afraid, but also be careful to buy gear used or even open box or refurbished. I've bought multiple lenses that have been open box and they've worked great. I've bought light stands that have been used or softbox that have been used, tripods even. And those things that are mechanical that you can see like the wear and tear of, are really great items to buy used if you can, sometimes over Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever. Things like hard drives and batteries and sometimes even LED lights, they have a tendency to go bad eventually, and sometimes you don't know how far away you are from them going bad when you purchase them. So those things I think are really good to just buy new, but then, look around for the other things. And then lastly, I want to share with you a kit that is pretty universal in terms of the different types of projects that it can be used for, because I do use these things for short films, YouTube, real estate, weddings, and they all carry over. So this may be a great set of kit to start looking at. Firstly, I use the Sony FX30 with that Tamron 1770 that I was talking about. It's a great system, I really like it. And then in terms of lighting, I really like the GVM 300D with the Ambit full softbox. All these things are linked down below again. So that works great for a main light. And then as a kicker, I just realized I forgot to turn my hair light on. See, I knew I was gonna forget to do this. That's another great light, is their Ulanzi RGB tube lights. They're really good. Anyway, another light that I really like using either as a backlight or an interest light is a small 50 watt Came TV Fresnel. It's the purple light that's in the back there, and they're a really good light for adding some sort of interest to the background. And then lastly, in terms of audio, I really like the Comica VM40 boom mic. It's just been a really great mic so far. And then I have a tripod from Kayer that is cheap and it's pretty robust and it goes really tall, and I really like that. And then for stabilization, I use the Zhiyun Crane 2S. And I don't need that much gear, but just as a really minimal set, that sort of gear has been able to be used on a lot of different projects.
My voice is tired. I don't think I can talk much longer.
So hopefully this video was long enough for you, helpful enough for you. You're able to pull some ideas, maybe decide what kind of gear you want to use, or maybe the area that you actually want to focus on. So if you did like the video, go ahead and do give it a like, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more of the videos that come out later, or the ones that I already have released on the channel. So I will see you next time, and I actually don't know when the next time will be. I will be kind of busy